Arahan Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Avivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasami. Supatipano Bhagavato Sanvakasanho Sangham Namami. Preliminary homage to the Buddha. Let us pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Going for refuge. We chant the verses for taking the 3 refuges. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Tutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhamman saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhamman saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. The 5 precepts. We chant these verses to observe the 5 precepts. Panati pata viramani sikapadam samadhiyami. Adina dana viramani sikapadam samadhiyami. Kame sumichachara viramani sikapadam samadhiyami. Musavada viramani sikapadam samadhiyami. Surameraya majapama datana viramani sikapadam samadhiyami. Recollection of the Buddha. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Buddha. Iti piso bhagava arahan samma sambuddho vijacharana sampano sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhammasarati Satta deva manusanam buddho bhagavati. Recollection of the Dhamma. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Dhamma. Swakato bhagavata dhammo sandihiko akaliko ehipasiko opanyayiko Pachatam venita bhuvinyuhiti. Recollection of the Sangha. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Sangha. Supatipano bhagavato sanvakasanho. Ujopatipano bhagavato sanvakasanho. Nyaya patipano bhagavato sanvakasanho. Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Sangha Yadidam Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sanho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjalikalaniyo Anuttaram Punyaketam Lokasati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Good morning, Dr. Ng. Good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Today's talk, we have Buddha's advice to his son, Rahula. Dr. Ng?
Okay, so good morning. Today's talk is about the advice that a father would give to his son. And as we are disciples or the children of Buddha, we should heed closely to what the father says, because it is also the advice for us, his children. So we have to listen carefully to the teachings of the Buddha, because in the teachings of the Buddha, you will find the gem. That's why it's called the triple gems. If you cannot find the gem, then you must read the Sutta, because it's through the teachings of the Buddha that you see the Buddha. If you see the Dhamma, you see the Buddha. Although he lived 2,600 years ago, he has left us with a legacy, and we have inherited his teachings. And so we have to listen closely to what he says in the suttas. So here we have Rahula, who was born on the day that the Buddha left home to search for enlightenment. And 7 years later, when he was 7 years old, the Buddha returned home to Kapilavatthu, and his ex-wife Yasodhara told the little son, "Go to your father, ask for your inheritance." And when the little boy asked the Papa, "Please give me your inheritance," the Buddha turned to Sariputta and said, "Ordain him," because this is the legacy that the Buddha has given to us. And what more, the children to have be ordained by his teachings. So, robed and non-robed, we receive his teachings, and we want to receive his teachings wholeheartedly. And so, here we have the first sutta. The first sutta, and there are 3 suttas, and these 3 suttas cover exactly what the Buddha had taught us, the Noble Eightfold Path. The first sutta will cover virtue, the second sutta will cover meditation, the third sutta will cover wisdom. So, sila, samadhi, panya. So now we see what the first sutta is about. So in any sutta, when you read, you want to know where the place is. And in the Nikayas, it is recorded where the place is. So here, the first is Rajagaha. You know, the little boy was previously in Kapilavatthu, so he had to travel with his father, the Buddha, and the Sangha. And slowly, slowly, he went all the way down to Rajagaha. And so the place is at Rajagaha. And the people involved are the Buddha and Venerable Rāhula as a child. So Buddha was staying in the bamboo grove and in the squirrel's sanctuary. As you read the sutta, you can imagine the sanctuary has a lot of squirrels. And there the Buddha was at the bamboo grove, and Rāhula was at Ambalaṭṭhika. And then one day, Buddha decided to give Rāhula a visit. And as he walked towards Ambalaṭṭhika, the son Rāhula saw the father coming, and he quickly get ready the seat and the water vessel with water to wash his feet. And so when the Buddha came, he offered the seat to the Buddha and paid respects to the Buddha. And then he washed the Buddha's feet with the water in the vessel. And now Buddha taught the son, because it's all about audio and visual. So he showed the little boy of the water vessel in the water. He says, do you see this small amount of water in the vessel? If you are not ashamed to tell a lie, this is so small, the amount of water in the vessel. So little is your recluseship. So little is your practice. So you must be ashamed if you are to lie. So that amount of water is very small. Then he says, do you see this water? Then he threw it away. If you are not ashamed to tell a lie, you have thrown away. You have thrown away your practice. You have thrown it away. Your practice is thrown. And so he then take the vessel and put it upside down. If you are not ashamed to tell a lie, you have put the practice upside down. So this is upside down. And if you are not ashamed to tell the lie, then he turned the vessel upside down and showed him it is being empty and hollow. If you are not ashamed to tell a lie. So you see, if you are not ashamed to tell a lie, your practice is but a stub. You know what's a stub? You know, people take a cigarette and there's a stub. A checkbook, there's a stub. There is of no value. It is so small. It's thrown away. It's upside down. It's being empty and hollow if you tell a lie and you're not ashamed to tell that lie. So he says, don't do this. So he is teaching his son, do not tell a lie. And you must be ashamed to tell a lie. And I find that of the precepts, the fourth precept is so important. Because if you tell a lie will take a lie. And then you will be totally confused. When the truth is in front of you, you cannot see because you have conjured many sankaras of lies. And so you see, he picked this very important speech. Says, do not tell a lie. He says, you must not tell a lie, not even in jest, not even as a joke that you tell a lie. So we all heard about the lie that killed, right? We have heard about the Australian journalist who play a prank to the royal family, and that tell them, play a prank, and the nurse on the other side pick up the phone and thinking it's relatives of the family, revealed certain private data, and later when it was revealed, the nurse killed herself. And they were doing it, not intending for such outcome. So I'm telling an example that is like, a lie can kill, even if it is done as a joke. So don't ever tell a lie. So as children of the Buddha, don't tell a lie, not even a white lie. People always say, can we tell a convenient lie? Well, if we know what is vipaka, we wouldn't want to tell a lie. And this, you don't ask people to justify your lies. Oh, it's just a little lie. It has to be not tainted. Right. So now he says, after this water in the vessel, he went to ask him, what is the use of a mirror? The use of a mirror, the boy says, is for reflecting. We look at ourselves in the mirror, we comb our hair, we sort of look, our clothes are okay. It is for reflecting. And the Buddha says, yes, you must reflect often, very often. So he says, before, during, and after an action. And the action is body, speech, and mind. Before you do something, you must think. You know, the Chinese will say, 三思, right? So actually you must think at least 3 times before you do an action. And while doing an action, and after doing an action, he asks you to reflect first whether this is afflictive. That means it causes harm. Harm to yourself, to another, to both. Does it cause harm? And is it wholesome or unwholesome? And if it is unwholesome and has bad outcomes and bad vipaka, then you have to consider the action, whether to do or not. So he says it very clearly. He says if it's afflictive, and if it's unwholesome, then the action is not to do. If it is not afflictive, unafflictive, and it is wholesome, then the action is to do. Because this will give you suffering for a long, long time. In this life or the next life, if there are other next lives. And this will give you benefits and welfare for your this life or for future lives. And he says, this is what you need to do. You have to reflect before an action. May it be body, speech, or mind. And he says that while doing it, because you think it is this way, but while doing it, you notice that it causes affliction and is unwholesome, then you must stop doing the action. And then, if you have done the action, you have to reflect again whether the action is afflictive, unwholesome. Then you have to he says, you have to confess, I've done this unwholesome action to your teacher and to your spiritual friends in the holy life. And then after that, you are to restrain from doing it. So then, if it is, while doing it, you think it is wholesome, then you carry on doing it. So you have to consider before, during, after, for body, speech, and mind. Whether these actions, you have to reflect whether these actions is afflictive to oneself, to another, or to both. Or is it wholesome or unwholesome? And that this action is to do or not to do. So this is the virtue that he taught Rahula. Because not all issues fall into the 5 precepts. And then that's why whether it is blamable or blameless, whether it is bright or dark, superior or inferior, you have to investigate. So you have to investigate, you have to ask the question, vimamsa, and then you have to investigate in your mind. You have to reflect whether it's afflictive, whether it's unwholesome. And then if it's afflictive and unwholesome, then you would not want to do it. So this is virtue. So keep in mind the precept of not telling a lie, and that if you're not ashamed to do blameful things, then your practice is but a stop. So now we go to the next sutta. The next sutta is about meditation. So this is Rahula as a child, right? Huh? Then we have Rahula as a young adult. So as a young adult, Rahula idolized the Buddha because the Buddha is so handsome. So one day in Jetavana, the Buddha was going for his alms round, and Rahula was following close behind him. And Rahula was admiring the features of the Buddha. And he might have been thinking that he, being a son of the Buddha, must be also as good looking as the Buddha. The Buddha knew what he was thinking, and then he turned to Rahula and says, "This form is not mine. This am I not. This is not myself." Then Rahula asked, "Is it only form?" Then Buddha continued with the other 4 aggregates: feelings, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. And then Rahula decided not to go to the alms round. How can I go to alms round after the Buddha had personally admonished me? And so he went to the root of the tree and he sat down with his back upright, with mindfulness in front of him. And Sariputta, his preceptor, saw him there and saw him. Mindfulness of breathing has great benefits, has great fruits. And so, after that, Sariputta left. In the evening, Rahula went to the Buddha and asked him, what are the benefits and fruits of mindfulness of breathing? So you see how the Buddha replied him. The Buddha replied him in this meditation topic. He didn't reply him mindfulness of breathing immediately. Now he reminded him of first, he went for a gradual discourse for the Buddha, for Rahula. The Buddha gave him a gradual discourse. First, he talked about the elements. Now, what are the elements? The elements are earth. So you have the elements of. He says that the earth, the solid parts of yourself, the head hairs, the body hair, the teeth, the nails, the bones, the muscles, the organs, those are solid. Now this internal earth and the external earth, like the ground we are standing on, and all the solid parts, they are the same. It's not mine, not I, not self. So you see that this earth and that earth is the same. Don't say that this is mine, this am I, this is self. We are just part of nature. These solid parts are from nature. When we die, this earth goes back to the earth. It's the same earth, not the other earth. The internal and external are the same. See it this way, he says. So this is that, and then he says, what are fluid or the water element? So we have the water element. Well, what's the water element? You have the tears, you have the snot, you have the spit, you have the saliva, you have the vomiters, you have the urine, you have the feces. No, feces is solid. Urine, and then he says the oil in the joints. So oil also means fat also. So we sometimes carry a barrel of water. Right, so this is water, but he says this internal water and the outside water is the same. So don't cling to this internal water. This is not mine, this is not I, this is not self. Then he says the fire element. This fire element, he says, what is consumed, drunk, will give off heat. So you don't take your temperature after you've taken your food, because it will be higher. So this fire internally and the fire externally is the same. And then he talked about air. So the air in your lungs and the air that comes out and the air in the intestines is the same. And then he also said about air in the legs. So the Chinese will say hong sip. You know, it's a hong, that means the wind going through. So this is the wind. Talk about the wind element, the air element. This air element, this air in the lungs, or air as a flatus, is the same as the air outside. And then he talked about space. He says there is aperture of the nostril, of the ears, of the mouth, of this hollow space within. This space within and the space outside is the same. It is no different. This is not your space. It's nature's space. Internal and external, they are the same. It's not I, not mine, not self. So he will say that internal is equal to external. So he tell Rahula, the young man, because he was quite taken by the Buddha's form, right? So the Buddha would tell him about the elements. The body is made of the elements internal and external are the same. Then he went on to say, you must take the elements as a kind of meditation also. He says that all these elements, like the earth, you know, it will receive clean and dirty things. So you have plastics all over, right? The earth, the water will take clean and dirty things. Now the water, the rivers, the oceans are choked with plastics. So dirty things they have to take. They take. They don't reject, they take. So they, earth, water, fire, the fire will burn clean and dirty things. The air, the wind will blow on clean and dirty things. The space is not engaged with clean and dirty things. And so he says, agreeable or disagreeable, do not let them invade your mind and stay. So you are not attached to pleasant nor to unpleasant. So he lead him from the body, okay, to the mind, and then he told him about the Brahma Viharas. So the Brahma Viharas, he says, let loving kindness, develop loving kindness to counter ill will. And that for compassion to counter cruelty. And for appreciative joy of others' successes to counter discontent or jealousy. And he says for equanimity, in this sutta he says counter aversion. So you see, he is now guiding the Rāhula to have an open and more immeasurable mind. But there's still lust, right? So he says, you have to consider the foulness of the body to counter lust. And you have to consider impermanence to counter conceit. And then he talked about the benefits of the mindfulness of breathing. Then he talked about your 16 steps, the 16 steps of the mindfulness of breathing. So he guided his son. He says, mindful of the breathing, and that step 1 is breathing in long. You know you are breathing in long. And breathing out long, you know you are breathing out long. Then breathing in short, you know you are breathing in short. Breathing out short, you know you are breathing out short. And then he says, breathing in, experience the entire breathing process. Breathing out, experience the entire breathing process. And then he says, the last step of the first tetrad is breathing in, calm the bodily formations. And then breathing out, calm the bodily formations. And when he went on to the second tetrad, breathing in, experience the rapture of the body. Breathing out, experience the rapture of the body. And then breathing in, experience the pleasure in the mind. Breathing out, experience the pleasure in the mind. And then he says, breathing in, experience the mental formations. Breathing out, experience the mental formations. And then the last of the second tetrad, he says, breathing in, calm the mental formations. Breathing out, calm the mental formations. And then he lead him to the third tetrad. He says, breathing in, you experience the mind. And then breathing out, you experience that mind. And then he says, breathing in, gladden the mind. Breathing out, gladden the mind. And then he went on to say, breathing in, concentrate the mind. Breathing out, concentrate the mind. And then the last step of the third tetrad, breathing in, liberate the mind. Breathing out, liberate the mind. And then he lead him to the fourth tetrad, which is about the Dhamma. The Dhamma or the mind objects. To contemplate that the mind objects, they are the body, the feelings, the mind, and the mind objects. They are impermanent. Contemplate, breathing in, contemplate impermanence. Breathing out, contemplate impermanence. Breathing in, contemplate dispassion or viraga, turning away. Breathing out, contemplate viraga, dispassion. And then he went on to say, contemplate on cessation, contemplate, breathing in, contemplate on cessation, breathing out, contemplate on cessation. And then the last is breathing in, contemplate relinquishment, and breathing out, contemplate relinquishment. So he tells Rāhula, if you do this, you will know the cessation of your final breath in and out. That means you will die a peaceful death. So he gave this mindfulness of breathing to his son, to his child, to tell him that these are the benefits and the fruits of having mindfulness of breathing. In other suttas, we know that the mindfulness of breathing fulfill the four foundations of mindfulness, which then fulfill the 7 factors of enlightenment, which then fulfill the true knowledge and liberation. So the 1472, 1 mindfulness of breathing, 4 foundations of mindfulness, 7 factors of enlightenment, and 2 true knowledge and wisdom. And so he gave his son these meditations, and that not to attach to the body, which is made up of just the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space. It is not mine, not I, not self. And so you do not hold. So it is helping the son to not be attached to the body. And then to open his mind, to accept the agreeable and disagreeable, just like this, the earth, water, fire, air, and space, that they are not engaged with the agreeable or the disagreeable, the clean or the dirty. And then he says, practice loving kindness to counter ill will, compassion to counter cruelty, appreciative joy to counter discontent, equanimity to counter aversion, foulness to counter lust, impermanence to counter conceit, mindfulness of breathing to develop for the 7 factors of enlightenment, for true knowledge and wisdom. So he taught the son this meditation. So from virtue, samadhi, and then panya. So now is panya. So this is from childhood, youth, adult. Here it was also Jetavana, just in Jetavana, the Buddha, Rāhula, and the deities. One day, while the Buddha was having a meditation, the thought arose in him that Rāhula is ready for arahantship. His mind, the conditions are ready. So he says, let me guide Rāhula to his deliverance. And the deities read the Buddha's mind and say that, well, they have to be part of this. So the Buddha had already decided. So from Jetavana, he went to Savatthi for his alms round. And after the alms round, he returned to the Jetavana. And then he approached Rāhula. let's go to the blind man's grove. Take your sitting cloth along. And so Rāhula took his sitting cloth along and followed closely behind the Buddha. And the deities, thousands of them, follow this also, because they say that the Buddha will lead Rāhula to realization, complete realization. And so the sitting cloth is placed, the seat is made ready for the Buddha. Rāhula paid his respect to the Buddha and sat aside. And then the Buddha asked him. He asked him about the sense bases, sense objects, and contact. So he says, is the I permanent? Then you also answer, is the I permanent? So Rāhula says impermanent. So if it's impermanent, is it suffering or happiness? You answer too. And Rāhula says suffering. So if it is suffering, is it fit to say mine, this is mine, this is I, this is self? So Rāhula say, no, it's not fit to say that this is mine, this I am, this is self. And then he went on from the I, he talked about form, sight. So is sight permanent? Is what you see permanent? Is it happiness or suffering? Is it mine, I, self? So we see forms changing, right? As we move along, the form change, the scenery change. It's never permanent, right? And we may see the same thing, but we have different lenses, some short-sighted, some long-sighted. Cannot see the same thing. So sight. Then he went on to say, say I consciousness. So for the contact, you need a sense consciousness. So the I consciousness. So is the I consciousness permanent? If you see one thing, you move your eye from here to other, it has to arise and cease, arise and cease, arise and cease, arise and cease. So is it permanent? Is it suffering or happiness? Is this mine? Is this I? Is this self? So he says, no. So he went through sense-based, sense object, sense consciousness. Then he similarly say, this is sense contact. So is your eye contact permanent? Your eye contact from morning until now, it has been changing, right? The eye contact has been changing, right? So it's not permanent. Suffering or happiness, mind or I or self. Now this suffering or happiness, so the dukkha has three kinds of dukkha. Dukkha dukkata, that means dukkha dukkata is birth, aging, disease, and death. Then you have dukkha sankhara. So we have sorrow, agitation, depression, despair. All these are 5 aggregates of clinging. Then we have this dukkha parinama, which states that anything that changes is dukkha. Okay? Any change is called dukkha. So it's a definition of dukkha that encompasses all this. So that's why it will say that if it's impermanent, is it suffering? The answer is it is impermanent. It is change, and so it is dukkha. Right. So contact have this impermanence, is changing all the time. From morning till night, it has been changing. That is for the eye. He says when you contact, you have the 5 aggregates. Now these 5 aggregates, the 6 sense base is already the body component. Right. Now he will say that this contact of this will give you feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. So this is the 5 aggregates. So you ask, is your feelings permanent? Your contact is impermanent, right? So how can your feelings be permanent? So is it suffering? So is this mind, I, self? So similarly for perception, because all these are conjoined twins, conjoined quadruplets. They come together, they are conjoined. They are feelings, perception, mental formation, consciousness. They come together. So most time when we contact, we have a feeling, perception, and then a mental formations and consciousness. We have to be conscious of that contact. There are many things in the world, but our mind is only on one contact at a time. Although we say we multitask, but it's just jumping very fast. But we never totally appreciate one thing before we jump to the next thing. We think there is a continuity, but there is not. You have to experience one contact fully, arise and cease. Then you can appreciate that this, although they are conjoined quadruplets, you can tease them out because each one will speak. So your perception will change. Your mental formation will change, and your consciousness will also change. These 3 based on contact and consciousness, because we have a mind that sleeps and wakes up, so we have a consciousness, the mind. So we have this arise and cease, arise and cease. So the Buddha then, from the I itself, he went slowly. He went slowly down the sense bases. So this is one sense base, the I. So he went from I to ears, to nose, to what? Tongue, to body, to mind. So let's say the I represents all these others. You can see all the other sense base are impermanent. We age, we die, we change. Aging is a new form of development. So you see the sense bases and the sense objects are impermanent. The contact is impermanent, the consciousness is impermanent. And then that's why they have all this is also impermanent. If the contact is impermanent, how can the feelings be permanent? How can pain be permanent? How can pleasure be permanent? So the Buddha will say, feeling is just like a bubble, like a soap bubble that children plays. And when we get enthralled with it, perception is a mirage. Mental formations is empty like a banana trunk. And consciousness is just a magician that tricks you again and again. So then he talked about the mind. So we have the mind base, and the mind consciousness, and the mind objects. So all these are also impermanent. The contact with the mind contact gives you feelings, perception, mental formation, consciousness, and have the same impermanent quality, suffering quality, and non-self quality. So in the end, all these 6 sense bases and the 5 aggregates are impermanent, suffering. And so if they are impermanent suffering and subject to change, it's not fit to be called, this are mine, this am I, this is self. If you have no attachment to things that are impermanent, then there will develop a disenchantment with the six sense bases and the five aggregates. If you are disenchantment, then you have dispassion. When you have dispassion, your mind no longer attached to it. So the mind is liberated. And when the mind is liberated, the one who knows then says, and one who fully realizes then says, birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There will be no more becoming. And so Rāhula, while listening to the Buddha, he was delighted. And then he realized arahantship when there was no clinging to any of these six sense bases or the five aggregates. And that Rāhula realized arahantship by the guidance of his father, the Buddha, and at the same time, the deities, the thousands of deities, realized the Dhamma. They realized the Dhamma in the sense of stream entry when it says, whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation. So the deities realized their own way, while Rāhula realized fully, and so Rāhula joined the Arya Sangha. And so this is how the Buddha guided Rāhula step by step. From a child, the mind matures with the guidance of virtues, precepts, and then meditation, and then the wisdom. So this is the lessons we have to learn. So the suttas are to be read, to be practiced. They are instructions given by the Buddha, and we have the legacy. They are not just to read, but to read and practice. So he says, the Buddha says, we must not tell a lie. We must be ashamed to tell a lie. Because they said that if you are not ashamed to tell a lie, there is no evil you will not do. So there's an example here. He says there was a royal tusker. A royal tusker means a royal elephant that is to do better. So they said the tusk is as long as poles, poles, and that the elephant is huge. And when he fights with his forefeet and his hind feet, just a feet, Then he will fight with the whole leg, the forequarters and the hindquarters. And then he will fight with his ears and his face. But then he will keep his trunk. And then that is his restraint. But he says that this elephant that goes to war, he will fight with his forefeet and his hind feet and the forequarters and the hindquarters. So you can see the elephant, forequarters and hindquarters, all fighting, and the trunk and the ears and the face and the tusk and his trunk. If such an elephant will do such thing, that means he doesn't care about his life. Then he will say that one who tells a lie will do as this, that he would not be ashamed to do evil. So this is, in the example, there was this elephant tusker. So, virtue you must keep. Without virtue, you cannot practice samadhi because you will be too distracted with regrets by the breaking of the precepts or doing blameful things. So only when you have your precepts, the foundation, then you build on the foundation for the meditation, and then you can develop wisdom. It is a progressive path. So it's 12 o'clock, so now we can open for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. So far, we have 2 questions with us. The first question, sometimes we like to twist the truth when we joke. I always thought it is okay because there's no bad intention. So now I'm a bit taken aback in relation to Buddha's advice to Rāhula. Can please advise? Any tips, Dr. Ng?
So you can be very clear that the Buddha gave these instructions that do not tell a lie, even as a joke. So whatever you speak, it has to be the truth, and nothing but the truth. So the practice has to change. If you want to see Nibbana, or you want to turn in samsara, and wants to be in the ha-ha world, so you have to know for yourself. You have to think very carefully what you speak. You do not know the consequences. The consequences of telling a joke so many times is that people don't take your words to heart and think that you are joking all the time. When you're serious, people say, she is joking. So when the words, so speech, the Buddha says, you only speak of the Dhamma. Otherwise, you keep noble silence. When you speak, the Buddha says very clearly that you must speak. So the Father tells us this, you must remember, it is for your benefits. So you have to rethink what you say. So he says, you have to speak what is true, the Four Noble Truths. You have to speak what is correct. You have to speak what is beneficial. You have to speak what is agreeable. You have to speak what is welcoming. And you have to fulfill this. Otherwise, don't speak and don't WhatsApp and don't tweet and don't know what other things. It is the same kind of communications. If you tell a lie and you are not ashamed to tell a lie, there will be no evil that you will not do. So you can see examples very, very clearly how speech affects others, how speech can evoke hate. So you think that this is a joke? No. Every speech has a karma and a vipaka. So he says here, it either have the outcome. Is it a painful outcome, a painful consequence? You read the Pali word immediately, or vipaka down the road. So we must bear in mind what our speech is to be. We do not know, no? We do not know that the consequences. So you must think very carefully. There is no laughing matter when you suffer. And those people make those speech as a prank, don't you think they regret this for the rest of their lives? So do not hold speech lightly. If you hold speech lightly, then you won't be listened to.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. We have many more questions that just came in. The second question, it's very difficult to understand non-self and emptiness as we interact with society and lead a worldly working and family life. How do we apply knowledge of non-self and emptiness in our daily life so as to balance our worldly and spiritual life?
So you say non-self, is that we don't hold things too closely. So we think that these sense pleasures, these feelings of sense pleasures, like now COVID, I am suffering, I can't see the things I want to see, I can't go to the cinemas, I can't go to the nightclubs, I can't go to the discos, I can't go to the symphony, I can't go to the sports complex. I want to enjoy the senses. So if you think that this is the self, if you think that this is a self, then you will suffer. But if you think that these are the conditions of the world, and it's just depending on conditions of the world, and it has to respond to the conditions of the world, and these conditions of the world say it is unsafe. These are conditions of the world. So we have depending on conditions. So the Buddha did not say a creator self, a creator God or so. It is depending on conditions. It's depending on ignorance and craving that drives man round and round. These are conditions of the world. There's nothing to do with yourself. You have to respond to the context. If you treasure this life to find the ultimate meaning of this life, to see the Dhamma, because all these other sense pleasures and views and becoming are empty. At the end of the day, when you close your eyes, you have to ask yourself, have I done my work? If not, then you have to return again to correct your mistakes. So you will have lots of books, of your story. So this is, you must see that it's conditions, and we are just a sensory organism moving in an environment, in the family, in the society according to your country, according to the world, according to the earth, water, wind, and fire, and the space that you are in. We are just moving in these conditions. You face your family, certain things crop up, certain things affect them, certain things they affect you because affect them, but these are just conditions. So you have to see the Four Noble Truths, to look at the origin, and that there is craving. If you can see that these are just conditions, you just let them go. Then you won't suffer. But if you want to do this, that, and multiple things, then you will be stressed. If you stress yourself, you ask for it. Because you can live simply, but if you do not wish to, then you suffer. You have so many things to do, you are so distracted, your mind gets constricted and distracted. How can the mind be elevated? How can the mind be open? How can that mind cease? It is blind. It's blind to the Dhamma. because there's so many objects there, so much mess. So only when these things are cleared and you know that there is no need for attachment. But this requires training. So Rāhula has to undergo training from 7 years to 20 years. Now, how long is that? But sometimes we may grow old. We only grow old, but our wisdom not. So you have to see what you want in life. And everybody has their choices, and everybody has their right to whatever they do. But we have to listen to the wise ones to see how to navigate through the world so that we can see the Dhamma. Otherwise, life would have been lived in vain. So this is we live the life. This is according to conditions, and we respond with understanding, with wisdom, with the Dhamma Viharas, and then we try not to be attached.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. Next question, can devas attain arahantship in the heavenly realms?
Well, in the suttas, I don't remember reading one that says the devas attain arahantship. I only read in the sutta that the devas, when they are dying, because the smell will start coming, and then the devas, when dying, will be exhorted by their friend devas to say that, hey, take rebirth in the human realm, because in the human realm there is the Buddha Dhamma. There you can attain enlightenment. It is in the deities when you enjoy celestial and divine joys. It's like the rich, won't know what is suffering of hunger or poverty. So those rich would not understand the poor if they have never been poor. So the deities would not understand suffering. So they heard that if you are reborn in the human realm, where you can see the whole spectrum of suffering and of the attachments, and the Dhamma is there, you may realize. So in the suttas, I have not heard of a deity realizing arahantship from direct conversation with the Buddha. But it was said that the deities, and the deities is a realm from the realm of the four great kings, the Tawatimsa, the Yama, the Tusita, the gods that create, the gods that control other creations. Then we got the Maras. Then, like in the Christian, it will be the archangels. So Mara has more power than these devas. So you have Maras. And Maras, above the Maras, and Maras, how are they powerful? They introduce mind objects. Okay, so then after that, and you must be careful of mind objects. So when mind objects are introduced, these are defilements, you drop them completely. So there are defilements. And above the Maras are the Brahmas. Right? Then there is the pure abodes, where the beings, the non-returners go, and just in the non-returners in that realm, they are believed to have gone from there through the practice to arahantship. So the deities, by definition, is considered all those devas below the Mara. So there are deities, so there are many definitions of the realms, and there are deities that are considered radiant, and there are deities that are considered luminous, but these are just deities. And so the deities, they come and listen to the Dhamma. So they rejoice in the Dhamma. So we evoke the deities because they are powerful. They can protect the sasana. and they can protect the teachings, and they can protect the beings. So we evoke. But other than that, they also, like, if there are family devas, they will sometimes sort of approach that the practicing one and says that, hey, you're not realized, you better go and see the Buddha who is realized. So sometimes the deities, family deities, will approach the beings. But so deities, they receive discourses. Whether they realize arahantship in the suttas, in the nikayas, I haven't read that. But then, why do we want to talk about deities? Why do we want to talk about others? We only concern about our own practice. So don't think too much. Just practice for ourselves. Practice so that we are clear that we can be a deity even in this world. If you have the loving kindness, if you have the compassion, if you have appreciative joy, you have equanimity, you are the Brahma in the earth. You don't have to think about, deities. So this is sort of like academic, may not be of any practical value.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. What are the two wisdoms that you mentioned in 1472? And the 7 factors of enlightenment, are these manifesting during meditation only, or also in our daily life?
Okay, to make it simple, , 1472. One is mindfulness of breathing. It's of great benefit because it fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness, of the body, feelings, mind, and Dhamma, or mind objects. We are just body and mind with feelings and mind objects. We are all this, and he tells us how to overcome them. When then it fulfills the 7 factors of enlightenment. These 7 factors of enlightenment help to see or develop the vision to see through knowledge and wisdom. So this is 1472. So the 7 factors of enlightenment starts with the mindfulness. This requires training. So if you practice this, then you will get mindfulness factor of enlightenment. And you also have investigation factor of enlightenment. Investigation, you will have energy factor of enlightenment. You will have rapture, that means when you know something, you're very happy in your body. And you will develop tranquility, and will have concentration factor of enlightenment, and then you have equanimity factor of enlightenment. So these are mind objects. Mind objects is like an actor or actress. If you tell you be sad, then be sad. You're angry, you're angry. So you develop that mind. So when actors and actresses, they go into their story, they produce that type of mind to portray. So similarly, when you are trained in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you have to develop mindfulness. So when you develop mindfulness, that mindfulness of paying attention to the object becomes a faculty. You develop it as a faculty. And if you develop into a faculty, you develop it, you condition it again and again, then it becomes a power. So it becomes very powerful. So this powerful, this mindfulness as a mind object, then able to fill the mind with mindfulness and become immeasurable as in the Dhamma Viharas. So this mindfulness, when you are training, you have to investigate. You have to investigate the body, the feelings, the mind objects. You have to investigate with energy. When you do this, when you are very mindful, your body will have pleasant sensation because you are not engaged with the unwholesome. You are engaged with the wholesome. So your body naturally have pleasant bodily sensation. This is vipaka from the practice. So the rapture, and when the rapture will also develop tranquility. Tranquility is serenity. And with the serenity, you naturally develop concentration. So when the concentration, it helps to liberate, and then you develop equanimity. So these are developed as we practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And when you practice it, you will then be able to see these factors of enlightenment because you are practicing it. It is part of the practice. You fulfill this in the sense that you are mindful, you are investigating with energy. And while you are investigating, you are happy and calm. And so you can concentrate on what you are investigating, what you are mindful of, and that you can see things as they are, which are impermanent, suffering, and not mine. And if it's like that, you don't say this is mine. So you keep the second precept. The second precept is that what is not mine, I do not take. So you turn away. This is not mine, I abandon it. These are not mine, I abandon it. And so you do not hold. There is no lust, no dosa, no moha. So then with the factors of enlightenment, these factors of enlightenment is developed because you practice it time and time again. So people go for training. They train, they condition themselves to do something again and again and again. And then when they can see, then there is true knowledge and wisdom. So then you won't be attached to things that are impermanent. The 12 DO are all impermanent things. So you don't need to attach. So if you don't attach to ignorance or craving, the consciousness will also don't attach. So when it ends, it just ends. So we all say, when they say cessation, so they have this quality that you have to see, which is anicca, which is impermanence. And then the viraga, which is called disenchantment or fading. And then we have cessation, which is called, nirodha, which is called cessation. And then patini sego, which is called release or relinquishment. But we see this every day, right? When we do something, it's finished. Even in a sentence, you see full stop. There's a space, there's a gap. So it's not something we don't see. We also turn away, fading. So this is a year of the golden rat, right? So we turn away from sense pleasures or crowded places. We turn away. So when we turn away, we do not want to be entangled with it. So there is a cessation of the suffering. If you do something, like I do like this, my hand stop here, it stops. When you do washing, you do some dishwashing, it stops. When you do bathing, your bathing stop. When you do your toileting, your motion stop. You finish, you get up. There is a stop in all the actions you do. It's not something that is difficult to see, but we have to train ourselves to be mindful of the body. That it is this way. Only if it is this way, then there will be release. And when you release, so the state of emptiness is not hollow. It's not, the practice is not hollow. The practice is full. So they have this development to the fullest. So when it's not hollow, it's full of bliss, full of happiness. Because now there is no more suffering. So there's the end of suffering. So this is how we have to exhort that mindfulness is the first step that we have to do. But in here, we are talking about the Buddhist kind of mindfulness, because the Buddhist kind of mindfulness tells you that the fourth tetrad, that you are to see this. You have to see this, that there is impermanence, that we have to see impermanence, suffering, and that this is non-self. So I isn't. There is no I isn't. So you see impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So you see every day, every contact, you see this. Then the suffering will end. Because these are conditioned things. So when you see in the Heart Sutra, they says, no more arising and no more ending. So there is the no conditioned things.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. There are two questions, similar questions on Rāhula. After Rāhula became an Arahant, are there any further mention of him in the Nikayas? And where, when, and how did he die before the Buddha? Thank you.
This one you have to do Google. I think my topic is this three. I think you need to read further. He died earlier than the Buddha, but he was said to be the foremost of the monks. That means is as a Samanera, he must be very well behaved. I do not know the details. I think this can be Googled, but I don't remember reading much about this, other than this. You can Google and look for Rāhula. You go to Sutta Central and look for Rāhula and see what pops up from Sutta Central. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Ng. How can upholding the 5 precepts guide us in facing and dealing with racist attacks with compassion and wisdom without unintentionally hurting the person who is a racist?
Oh, racist. Okay. So, whenever if you counter another, so it depends on what situation you are in. So, the Buddha tells us in ways which I find very useful is the number 20, which I find very useful, number 20 sutta, removal of unwholesome thoughts, removal of thoughts. So, do you need this? You need this one, Ken? Right. So you are encountering something. Now you are in contact with something. So similarly, when you are in contact with your inner world, it's the same thing. So there is a way whereby you want to navigate the world safely. So he says in that Sutta MN20, because we are like what we think, and so we have to guide our mind to think of wholesome thoughts. And how the Buddha taught us. In this MN20, he says there are 5 ways of removing distracting or unwholesome thoughts. And the 5 ways is wholesome. Thoughts to replace unwholesome. And then he says that the danger of such things. Then he says ignore. Then he says stealing the thought formation. Then he says with energy, you must do it. So let's talk about this racist thing. So we all know that the skin color is skin deep. If we remove our skin, like the clothes, behind this, you will have seen Grace anatomy, that's just muscles, etc. So if you see this color of the skin, if you know that the skin color is just a biological manifestation of a response to the sunlight, and the response to the sunlight, it means there's a lot of light. You live in a place where there's a lot of light. You need more melanin, right? So the color of the skin gets darker. And then when you are living in places where the sun is not there, then you become paler. So the color of the skin is biological response to the environmental conditions. But the world have made it such because man is full of greed, hatred, and delusion, and full of ignorance. So they think that the color of the skin is equivalent to their status of the being. So it's a historical thing. So we have racism that divide people. Not only racism, we have caste system also that divide people. So the Buddha opened his doors to all races, to all caste members, because he says it is the mind. And once we are a human being, we have the potential to realize if we do not have very bad roots like Devadatta. So you see, we are divided by the color of the skin, and we are divided by the gender. So we say that the gender, the male gender is stronger or the female gender is weaker. It is a cultural thing. Before in the Indus civilization, the female is a matriarchal society. Later, then it becomes a patriarchal society. It is the conditions of the time. So they make the division, they divide people, not only race, not only caste, it's also gender, and it's also age. So before they consider the age as the older, the wiser, but now they say, old already, don't know things. So, and then it says, old already, don't fight with us with the jobs. Or old already, I don't know these things. So there is this ageism also. And all this divides people. People do not appreciate the maturity of the minds. When people are very young, they may be mature. So we see the maturity of the minds. We do not see the age of the person. So we do not say just racism. We say that all that divides us as human beings. And human beings, why do we divide ourselves from animals who also fear, who also treasure their lives? So we divide ourselves, humans and animals, and that animals are food for us. And so we destroy animals and use them as food. So we talk about division, we talk about destruction. So we are killing, stealing. And then now it's sexual misconduct. Before everything is prim and proper, and that you cannot covet another person's spouse. But now there is adultery. And that when you misbehave because of sexual pleasures, it may be even worse than animals, because animals have sex only when they are on heat. Whereas human beings have sex as and when, 24/7, right? So, and then intoxicants. Intoxicants already we have, our minds already crowded and cloudy with greed, hatred, and delusion. You want to add more things to it? You want to add more confusion with alcohol, drugs? You cannot see your pristine nature. And so with these 5 precepts is to keep us on the middle path. And on the middle path, we are guided. We are guided not to harm ourselves and others and society. And so we have to approach it in a wholesome way. You want to put your message across. It is from conditioning. It is from conditioning to have the being understand the wisdom. Do you think your one-off sentence, your one-off encounter will change the minds of people? Rather, you change your own mind. That you are not divided from another human being. And that racist remark is all of ignorance. So you will pity these people with ignorance. And so with pity, when you have your mind is of compassion or kindness, that these people are ignorant, then you will talk like a mother to the person. And when the person talks, if you talk to another, trying to put sense, then the person, if he is not clinging to his view, that it is supposed to have a dialogue with you, that when we dialogue, we discuss, and that if we agreed, our views change accordingly. But if the dialogue is one-sided, then it's not a dialogue. So you see the person is receptive or not. If not receptive, ignore. So you must have wholesome approach. You must have kindness and you must have compassion. And that you know that there's a danger. If you encounter this, they get angry, they just take a knife because all they want is to, they have so much bottled up frustration. They just either box you, punch you, or if they have a knife, they will just kill you, or if they have a gun, they will just shoot you. Why would you want to die because of this ignorance? Why your life is more important to see the Dhamma than to die under the hands of ignorance? So you must be able, so this danger is put here actually, second. But I like the acronym because this is how we wised, W-I-S-E-D. So still the thought formation. If you are railing to go, to tell, whatever you want to tell, then you might actually reef up even more. So it's better sometimes just to be quiet, just to quiet down. Quiet down your body, quiet down your mind. Animals can sense, other humans can sense too, whether you are aggressive. If you are not aggressive, the other person that you are encountering won't be aggressive. So, you just quiet things down. And that you must have energy in doing all these things. You must have the energy to have the wholesome, to ignore, because the conditions you can see, anger is consuming them. They are holding a knife or a gun. You better, quietly move away. You are whether you are wise or not, you have to know how to navigate the world. If you are not wise, then the story is finished. One life wasted. So don't because of this. It's not racism only. It's so many things that divide, race. So whatever, the biodata, there's age, name. They see a name, then they say, this person of this race, or whatever. So all this biodata, that's why there's a privacy thing. Age, sex, all this divide people. You do not see the character of the mind. You do not appreciate the mind. You only appreciate the mind. The innermost mind, people can put a facade for you to see, but you can see their intentions. People think that you cannot see, but you can see their intentions. So you would want to, the Buddha said, avoid evil, do good, purify the mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. I think we are...
Yeah, time's up. Do you want to answer one last question?
Okay.
They are both on investigation of Dhamma. What do we investigate during the investigation factor of enlightenment? And is there a guideline we should follow when doing investigation? Is there a wrong investigation?
So if you read Bojjhanga Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 46, there is the factors of enlightenment. So this factor of enlightenment, the investigation factor of enlightenment, he teach you how to investigate. So this investigation, he says that I use this BID well to remember. So he says you investigate whatever you encounter, whether it's blameful or blameless. Every encounter, every contact, whatever any action you are doing, whether this is inferior or superior, whether this is dark or is bright. This is more of the mind, whether this is wholesome or unwholesome. So there are guidelines written in the Samyutta Nikaya 46. So in the investigation, you investigate like Sherlock Holmes. When you investigate, you see he's teaching us to encounter when we meet contacts and that how to respond. You say this contact, if I do this, is it blameful? Is it blameless? Is it inferior or is it superior? Is it wholesome or is it unwholesome? Your thoughts can be unwholesome, whereas the factors of enlightenment are wholesome, whereas the hindrances are unwholesome. So the mind can have different degrees of, the consciousness have different degrees of brightness or lightness. So you also see. So you investigate. So investigation is an objective examination of what you are encountering and that what are the mental formations you are forming to respond to that contact. So the Buddha will say, you see, seeing, hear, hearing. Don't be caught up into mental formations. So contacting. Just know that you are contacting, and every contact is impermanent. So you investigate whether this is impermanent or not. You investigate 12DO, you investigate karma, you investigate every conditional things, body, feelings, mental formations, consciousness, you investigate them. If only you investigate with energy, then you can see things as they are, because they have a purpose of clearing the mind, that the mind becomes clear. You develop right concentration. When you develop right concentration, the mind liberates. And when the mind liberates, it becomes immeasurable, as in equanimity. Then you have a clear mind you can then see things as isn't. Otherwise, things are permanent. Happiness, self. But now we want to, see things as they are. So this is the mindfulness factor of enlightenment, investigation factor of enlightenment. So all this can be developed when you have unremitting mindfulness of any of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, because during it you can see it developing, and itself you can develop it by itself. So the whole day you can do mindfulness factor of enlightenment, or the whole day you do investigation factor of enlightenment. Just like Sariputta says, you can put on clothes, or you can put on this mind object in the whole of your morning. You can put on this mind object the whole of the afternoon, or you can choose any of the factor of enlightenment. Because the person is well trained, just take up that clothes and wear it. That's the factor of enlightenment. But this requires training. So like when you see something, you are specialist, you can click and you know what is wrong. You can click and you go into that mind of this fully developed mind of the mindfulness factor of enlightenment, or the investigation factor of enlightenment. So these factors of enlightenment are used to counter other hindrances. So for somebody who is has sloth and torpor, then we will encourage the person to be mindful, investigate, have energy, have rapture. This would be the person who has sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor, and the person who is very restless, very agitated, then you ask him to go into tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. So they counter the hindrances, the 5 hindrances. They counter the hindrances of the sloth and torpor and restlessness. So this, and this is to counter restlessness. This is to counter sloth and torpor. So the Buddha will tell you when you have this problem, you use what to counter. So you can see, he tells you have this unwholesome, you use this to counter. He tells you, but you have to do it. It's all a DIY thing.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. For those who would like to ask questions on 7 factors of enlightenment or Anapanasati, please join us next Saturday. We have our second last lesson on Anapanasati.
Okay.
So we shall now close the session by dedicating merits. Let us invite all sentient beings to participate in our acquired merits.
Etavata cha amhehi sampatam punya sampatam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Etavata cha amhehi sampatam punya sampatam sabbe buddha anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Etavata cha amhehi sampatam punya sampatam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya.
Let us dedicate our merits to our departed relatives and friends.
Idam me nyatidam hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me nyatidam hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idam me nyatidam hotu sukita hontu nyatayo.
Let us pay homage to the Triple Gem.
Arahan Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Avivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasami. Supatipano Bhagavato Samvakasanho Sangham Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you again, Dr. Ng, and thank you, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, for joining us today.